Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making an easy, decadent chocolate peanut butter cake. So let's get started. First off, set your oven to 350 so it's nice and hot, and now we're gonna spray or butter and flour 3 8-inch pans. This cake stirs right together in 2 bowls, so you wanna have all your prep done ahead of time. Place a parchment round in the middle. This is your insurance that the cake layer will come out perfectly clean with no cracking. Set those aside, and now in a large bowl, we're gonna crack 3 large room temperature eggs. This cake is so moist and melt in your mouth, but chock full of flavor, you won't believe how simple it is to make. Grab a whisk, give these eggs a quick whisk, just to break them up. Now we're gonna add 1 cup of buttermilk. This could be cold, but honestly, your cake is gonna be a little bit better if everything is room temperature. Room temperature ingredients in your batter just ensure your cake bakes up a little bit more evenly with less doming and a softer side. 3/4 of a cup of vegetable oil will make this so light and soft. I love the taste of butter, but honestly, this cake is probably gonna live in your refrigerator. It's not gonna be served warm out of the oven. It actually can't be because we need to decorate it and it would fall apart. So your cake layers have to be completely cool. If your cake was butter-based, it would be a little bit firmer and just not have that same mouthfeel. For some extra flavor, we're adding a tablespoon of vanilla. Give us a nice whisk. And by the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week. This is nicely whisked, so set that aside. I'm gonna grab a scale, another big bowl, and a sifter. Zero your scale out. I'm using a scale today. You can just use measuring cups if you prefer, but it changes the way you measure. I'll show you that when we get to the flour. First up, we have 1 cup or 100 grams of cocoa powder. You could use Dutch processed or natural. You see the Dutch process is darker. It'll give you a darker and fudgier chocolate cake. Natural works just fine too though, so either will be fine. I have the sifter for this because cocoa powder is nothing but lumps. It has a lot of fat in it, so if you don't sift it, it's gonna be a nightmare. Of course, if you spill it on the countertop, that's not great either. Oh dear. They look like speckled eggs. Sift the cocoa powder out. Cocoa is delicious, but this is unsweetened, so if you bit into a lump of it that wasn't fully mixed, you'd be very, well, you wouldn't be happy. If you look in here, lots of cocoa lumps. Just push those through with a spoon or a spatula. For the flour, we want 2 3/4 cups or 330 grams. All purpose, please. If you're using a measuring cup, just don't scoop the flour and level it off. That adds way too much. You'll fluff the flour up and then sprinkle it into your measuring cup. Just like that. Finish sprinkling and then level it off. It makes a big difference. Now I want 2 3/4 cups of granulated sugar. That's 550 grams. Two teaspoons of baking soda to help puff things up. 1 and 2. And 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And I also want 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt for some nice balance in our chocolate cake. Our scale's done. We're gonna give this a good whisk. Distribute all of those ingredients together. It's a lot of cake batter we're making because we have 3 big, beautiful 8-inch layers. This cake, by the way, has these really fluffy, fudgy chocolate layers, creamy peanut butter frosting, and then it has a chocolate ganache strip. So you get a lot of decadence per bite. It's so good. If you don't feel like making a layer cake, I totally get it. You could use this same recipe to make a 9 by 13-inch sheet cake. And I'll give you some decorating suggestions for that later. Beautifully mixed up, except for a few streaks, no problem. We're gonna combine these two, but you have a choice. To intensify the chocolate flavor, you could either use some hot coffee. If you don't wanna do that, just use hot water. In either case, you'll want a cup of coffee or water, so either heat your water up now or turn that coffee maker on. Now, you're supposed to pour the wet into the dry, but this bowl is a little bit full and slightly smaller, so I'm doing the opposite. Either way is fine. This recipe is fairly foolproof. Just imagining it flopping because I said that. Right now we're gonna stir to combine. You can use a spatula, you can use a whisk. My only suggestion is that you don't overmix the batter. You wanna stir it until you just see a few streaks of flour left. That's because we're gonna add the hot coffee or water in at the very end and then finish mixing. Super thick batter right now, and I just have a couple streaks of flour. Grab a whisk and that 1 cup of hot coffee or water, and we're gonna combine this and give it a final mix. Just pour it in, work it together. Your goal is to make this a nice smooth batter now. Be careful because you have a very watery mixture and a very thick one, so it's splash city if you're not careful. Once it's mostly combined, give it a final whisk. And now we can transfer it to our pans. Distribute the batter evenly. If you're using a scale, you can just measure out the cake layers to make sure they're all the same. If you don't have one, grab a knife and just plop it down into the center, and you can check the depth. Yeah, this one needs more batter. You should have 2 racks towards the center of your oven. Bake 2 on the first, 1 on the bottom, and then swap them 20 minutes in. Your cakes will bake for an additional 10 to 15 minutes until the centers are set. If you're making this cake as a 9 by 13 inch sheet cake, 40 to 45 minutes or until the center is set. You can use a toothpick or test with your finger and see if it's springy. If you want taller, fluffier cake layers that are really nice and flat, we're gonna use some cake strips. These are wet fabric strips. You can buy them online or make your own. Wring the excess water out and pop them onto the edge. Cake strips just let your cake layers bake evenly, so the center rises at the same time as the outer edge. They get nice and tall and super soft. Time to pop these into the oven. After they're baked through, let them cool in the pan for 15 minutes, then invert them onto a wire rack and remove that parchment paper. Once your cake layers are cool, it's time to make a creamy, dreamy peanut butter frosting, starting with 1.5 cups or 340 grams of unsalted room temperature butter. You should be able to use your finger and indent on it really easily. If your butter has any cold bits in it, they won't mix properly with the peanut butter and you'll have little nodules that you can see. It won't be attractive. To the butter, I'm adding 1.25 cups or 325 grams of a nice creamy peanut butter. And for this, really in any baking, it's best to use a processed peanut butter, and it has sugar and salt added to it, as well as some oils and emulsifiers, so it is really, really creamy. If you're using natural peanut butter, which is less processed, just make sure you stir it really, really, really well so it's totally homogeneous. Pop this onto your mixer, fitted with a paddle attachment, and we're gonna beat this on medium-high for 2 to 3 minutes, and yes, you should scrape the bowl down. Halfway through, scrape your bowl down because I bet you there is some unmixed butter right at the bottom. This right now, spread on toast, delicious. That was another one of my childhood make-your-own snacks. Peanut butter and butter on toast. And continue mixing. This looks so different now. It is whipped to perfection. No lumps, really fluffy and creamy, and you can tell it's lighter in color now. It's time to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of vanilla. Mix this up until it's incorporated. It's time to add the sugar, but we're gonna do this in batches. It's about 5 cups in total, about 600 grams. You can add a little bit more or a little bit less to taste, but the sugar isn't to give the structure because the peanut butter, while very delicious, is super slack at room temperature, so your frosting will weep off the cake. The sugar will give it some body. If you're making the sheet cake version of this, just cut the buttercream recipe in half. Super easy, you do not need that much frosting. Okay, mix that in on low. Once your sugar is mixed in, you're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of milk. I ran out of milk, so I'm using cream. Let that mix in, and then we're gonna add the rest of the powdered sugar. That's another 2.5 cups. 1, 2.5. Mix on low again. Sugar mixes in pretty quickly. It's time to add about 2 tablespoons of milk or cream. And it is definitely time for a scrape down. There are many different shades of tan in here, and there should only be one. I'm gonna mix this on medium now for 2 minutes until it is light and fluffy. Okay. My frosting is nice and fluffy. It is pretty wild. Look at that. I added in an extra teaspoon of cream just because it was looking so fluffy. I wanted it to calm down a bit. So looks nice and calm, super smooth, and it's time to assemble our cake. Grab your favorite cake plate or cake stand, and we're gonna get to work. We're gonna reserve a cup of the frosting. This is gonna be for the dollops. I'm not gonna put it in a piping bag just yet because you really have to whip a frosting right before using it, especially for dollops. Otherwise it gets kind of foamy and has just a texture that's not perfect. Okay. More than enough. All right, grab your first cake layer. Center it up. We're gonna use about 3/4 to 1 cup of frosting in between each layer, so plop that on. Smooth that out with an offset spatula. Grab your next cake layer, place that on top, and repeat the process. Another cup of frosting, smooth it out. If you're making this cake and your kitchen is screaming hot for some reason, feel free to pop this into the fridge to cool down if it's looking a little wobbly. This frosting has a really nice body to it. It doesn't feel like it's weak at all, so that shouldn't be a problem, but you never know, especially on a hot day. My last layer goes on, and right now, you want to just make sure everything is nice and centered up. Good. It's time to basically just add the rest of the frosting onto the outside and give it a smooth. I'm using a triggered ice cream scoop today because it's a really easy way to get frosting onto a cake without getting crumbs as you smear. But if you prefer, you could definitely use a piping bag and just pipe it all over. You do not need a lot of frosting on top of the cake because we have a ganache and dollops that are going on top. So work the frosting onto the side of the cake and then go for coverage. Honestly, if you made this cake as a sheet cake, just make the buttercream, swoop it up, then make a half batch of the ganache and just kind of drizzle it over and swoop it in some more. It'll be really pretty and have like a nice marbled effect. This looks a bit of a train wreck, but with a bench scraper, you can kind of fix everything. Just rotate the cake and start smoothing the sides out. Side. A cylinder has one side. Once it's smooth on the side, just pull the top in. This does not have to be perfect. Again, We're gonna cover the top with a chocolate ganache. It'll just pool all over and fix everything. Once your cake is basically smooth to your satisfaction, it's time to pop this into the fridge for 20 minutes so the frosting can set up. And in the meantime, we're gonna make a delicious, silky chocolate ganache. While your cake chills, grab 4 ounces or 113 grams of dark chocolate. You could use bittersweet or semi-sweet. And 1/3 of a cup of heavy cream. This needs to get warmed up until it is almost coming to a boil. You could do that in a small pot over medium-low heat or in the microwave in 30-second bursts until it's nice and steamy. I'm gonna use the microwave. Once your cream is nice and steamy, pour it over your chocolate. Set this aside for 5 minutes. The chocolate will get nice and melty, and then we can give it a stir. It's been 5 minutes, so we're gonna give this a stir and see where we're at. Very nice. If this had any lumps of chocolate left over, pop it in the microwave, 10-second bursts at half power, stirring in between. This, however, looks super silky and nice. Great. My ganache cooled down, so it's only just ever so slightly almost warm, and my cake is set. So we're gonna transfer our ganache right on top. And we're done. No, just kidding. Grab a small offset spatula and you're gonna move it over to the edge. But then once it gets to the edge, you be careful now. That's where the drips happen. So let's get the center looking okay. You can gather a little bit of extra ganache and kind of help the edge out a bit with some more drips. If your ganache is too warm, this will be runny. And if it's too cold, it won't drip at all. So you have to find that happy balance. Be conservative here. If your drips are too extreme, they'll just streak right down to the bottom, which is okay, but it might not be the look you're going for. My drips are all set, so we're gonna pop this into the fridge for 10 minutes so the ganache can set, and then we'll pipe our dollops. I have my reserved frosting here for the dollops, but this also needs a good stir because it was kind of foamy and it wouldn't give you those perfect, like, silky dollops. So grab a spatula, give it a quick mix for like 30 seconds, and it should be really smooth. Now we can transfer this into a piping bag. I have mine fitted with an 846 tip. It's my favorite large closed star. Time for some big, beautiful dollops. Just give them a squiggle. I have some mini peanut butter cups, and now you can just place the halves between your dollops. This cake isn't gonna last very long because people will be eating it quickly, but it lasts up to 5 days in the fridge, or you can slice it up, cover the slices well, and freeze them for up to 2 months. Give it a slice, and just like that, your cake is ready to enjoy. This cake is so fudgy and chocolatey. The buttercream is so fluffy and light. It is creamy and it smacks you in the face with peanut butter. It's really, really nice. I hope you get a chance to make this deliciously decadent recipe, and if you like my videos, hit that subscribe button and check out my cake playlist.